I am slowly trying to combat my imposter syndrome with regaining a firmer understanding of who I am as a person and who I want to be as a person. What's good, y'all? It is Hannah back with another handful for y'all. Thank you so much for the support that you gave me on my first video, just talking about what it was like finding my birth family. Um, I'm still kind of in shock, still trying to figure it out, but I figured that this would be a good time to kind of talk about another topic regarding the shame associated with being adopted. Specifically, actually, you know what, it probably can be associated across all the board, people who are adopted and families that look like them, but specifically I'm talking about people, Black children who are adopted into white families, and the shame that's associated with that. So to make this brief, I feel like I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, but in my previous video, I talked about how growing up, I didn't notice that I was adopted. It didn't really affect me. And after I went to therapy and started thinking about it, I realized that it did. The shame associated with being adopted, I think, comes from this sense of not belonging to anybody. My example for that is that whenever I would go out to dinner with my family, and it would be me, say I'm like 13 years old and I'm out with my mom and my dad and my brother and sister, and we're all sitting at the table, and the waiter will come at the end of the meal after we've had a whole meal together. We've been chatting, everyone's enjoying themselves. After we've had a whole meal, the waiter will say it's a check together or separate, looking at me. Mind you, I'm a child. And even as I'm an adult now and I'm in my 20s and whatever, that still happens and it still bothers me. And it's not necessarily that the waiter is asking if it's together or separate, it's that it's not clear. It's that it's not immediately associated who you belong to. And as humans, we love to have autonomy and freedom, but there is this longing of belonging and wanting to fit with someone else. So as a kid, I would not want my parents to come to certain school events, not because I was necessarily embarrassed of them, but because I didn't want to answer the questions. I didn't feel like having people be like, well, whose parent is that? Or who do you belong to? Where's your parent? And I point to my parent and they're like, no, for real. That gets old after a while. It's something you can laugh off, but after a while, it really does get old. And you're just like, these are my parents. And you have to continually justify that those are your parents, that is your family, and that wears on you. And after a while, as an adoptee, I'm speaking for myself, but maybe someone resonates to it. You start to feel like you don't really belong anywhere. Especially when you're in an adoption transracially and you're, Black child adopted in a white family, you definitely don't feel, like you belong in a white crowd. I have stories that I will share about when I really realized that I was a Black person. And it kind of hit me like a sack of bricks when I realized, it was middle school, high school, that I was like, oh, you're Black, like you got to figure this out. And that was really hard to realize and kind of learn the hard way, that things were not going to be the same as they were at home. And so, there's a shame in just simply existing. There's a kind of intrinsic imposter syndrome that kicks in where you're constantly a chameleon. You're one way with your family, but you're another way with your friends, which might feel more normal, and you're a totally separate way, or I'm a totally separate way when I'm by myself. And so it's really just like finding myself within this multifaceted space where I have all of these different sectors that I belong to. And now I found my birth family. I don't like, who am I going to be with them? So it's deep. I don't know. The answer is I don't know. Like, we really just figuring it out as we go. There's that level of of not feeling belonging, but there's also this shame associated with wanting to find my birth family. For me, it feels like a blockage in my chest. It feels like I'm trying to say my words and I can't, and they're being cut right here because it's like, don't say that. Don't say that. Don't feel that. If you do feel that, don't share that. And it hurts. It feels like I feel like Ariel, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm trying to like speak, but I can't. On one hand, like I got a text today saying I shouldn't have shared my video because I might have offended somebody, or and it was kind of qualified with like, we just want to keep you safe, and it was just like, but you're silencing me. Like I feel silenced, and the shame that I felt in just being adopted and trying to make everyone happy, but doing that at the detriment of my own wholeness has really kept me in a small place of feeling like I'm not allowed to explore this part of myself. Not only am I not allowed to explore it, I'm not allowed to share those feelings. And when I do share those feelings, they have to be filtered so that they don't bother anybody. So, there's a lot of different, layers to being adopted. And I really do feel like it's a natural imposter syndrome. It's like you live in an imposter syndrome because you're always just trying to tailor your personality or tailor who you are to fit wherever you are. I mean, think about what being adopted is that you're taking a baby and you're putting them somewhere else and you're saying, be this now. And the baby, I'm reading a book, actually, funny enough, have it with me. It's called The Primal Wounds. Have not finished it, but it's about, understanding the adopted child and what it means that infants have cognition. They understand what's going on. So you can't just place a child in a different position, rip them from their birth mother, and expect them to not remember that trauma at its core. But as a survival instinct, you're not about to just be in your family and be different. Like you look around and you assimilate. But now that I have become an adult and I'm in my own and I'm on my own, I very much so am realizing like I'm my own person. I'm my own person. And what does that all mean? So, there's a lot of learning that's going on here. I am slowly trying to combat my imposter syndrome with regaining a firmer understanding of who I am as a person and who I want to be as a person. Who I was the last, few years might not be who I want to be now. And that's okay. So I realized I was so close to the game. Learning. Like I'm still learning how to film. I just realized like I was so freaking close to the camera for a long time, and I'm sure that like my whole video was like this because I wanted to look at myself and I was looking at my lace, which honestly looks pretty damn good. So anyway, I appreciate everyone's kindness and wonderful words, and I've already met other adoptees who have shared their stories with me, and it's already made it worthwhile. So I'm really grateful that we've been able to talk, and I am really interested to see if anybody else can relate to the imposter syndrome. Do you struggle with that? Even if you are not adopted and you're in a family that you might not feel, like one of the group, do you feel an imposter syndrome? Did you have to overcome that? How did you overcome that as you grew? Would be very interested to know. Thank you for joining me for another video. I don't know how many of these I'm gonna do, but for now I'm enjoying it. And thank you for sending in your questions. These are really great questions. We're getting a lot of good dialogue going, and we'll talk next time.